Welcome to the No Filter Love Me One Project podcast.
My name is Danielle, and I'm so excited to have you here.
Each episode shares an inspiring message, looking at what's raw and real. You will hear from others who share their personal stories. See, when you yourself are vulnerable, it helps others do the same. Everyone has a story to share, and their story is their strength. So let's get started and make unfiltering happen. Welcome back to another episode on the No Filter podcast. Today's guest is Denise Walsh, who has helped over 1 million people find their purpose and fulfill on their God-given destiny. She started her career by working with families at a local mental health agency as a clinical psychologist, and has continued on to use her talents with It Works Global to build a large team of motivated, positive, and enthusiastic business owners. Her impact as a leader in the direct selling industry as a top income earner with It Works has given her a unique insight on what drives people to action. As a certified trainer with Jack Canfield, an elite coach with the John Maxwell team, and the author of the Amazon bestseller Retire Your Husband, Denise knows how to tap into a person's ultimate potential and find their greatness. In her new workbook, she's tapping into a combination of cutting-edge neuroscience, biblical principles, and captivating real-world stories. So welcome, Denise. I'm really excited to have you on. I don't even know where to begin because you have so many great things going on. I'm going to ask you to fill in the loopholes here. But again, welcome, and thank you so much for being on.
Yay! Hi, Danielle. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Absolutely. So if you can, before we jump into, today's podcast, if you can just kind of fill in the blanks of, you have so many things going for you, and you're just, your personality and just the dynamic of what you do is so incredible. I'm going to let you just take it over and share in, all those little loopholes in between.
All right. So I live in Michigan. I am married and have 2 little boys, ages 7 and 4, who both have cute red hair. I just think it's crazy because I'm like very blonde. They're super cute. And really, years ago, when I got into school in college, I decided that I wanted to go into the field of psychology. And I did that because I had worked several years in New York, actually, with foster care children of New York City. I worked in Asheville, North Carolina as a camp counselor and helped with mission projects out there. And so I had this bug to serve and this bug to love. And I really, they always say when you bless others, like you are blessed yourself. And I felt that. So I thought psychology was my way to give back to the world. And I felt like I have this way of kind of seeing people 3 steps ahead of where they see themselves. And so I love to cast vision for people. I love to kind of help, bring them up and become a bit more of who they're created to be. And so anyway, I thought psychology was the way that I would best serve the world. And so I got my master's in clinical psychology. I got my first job in Hastings, Michigan, which is like a country town. And I thought I was off to change the world. Like I had big dreams and big hopes. And it did not take long in my job to be tired, bored, and burn out and go through what they call a quarter life crisis.
Yeah. I mean, I love everything you just said. And I think when you said, giving that blessing to other people and how, you're getting that as well. Can you share a little bit about, I know you just said how you see people 3 steps ahead of where they see themselves. Can you expand a little bit upon that?
Yeah, I think that when people don't often know what they're good at because they think it's normal. And so I really have trained myself to watch the way that people interact, the way they show up, and the way that they speak. You know what I mean? I just kind of watch and then pick out the things that I really believe that they're good at and speak into them, because I don't think that we often even know what we're good at, because we think it's normal. So I've, especially as a counselor, as a camp counselor, but then as a clinical psychologist, and now as a mentor for so many people who are starting their business, I keep my eyes and ears open to what they're good at. And then I really work to call that out and build confidence in that area.
I love that. I think that speaks, not only highly of you, but just, seeing that light and seeing other strengths and pulling that out of them is such a, it's such a need, but it, like you said, it just builds upon that confidence. So can you share a little bit? I know you have, your psychology background, you have a wide range of, different people that you've helped and mentored, but looking at the now, you work for and with, It Works Global. Can you share a little bit about that, what that looks like?
Yeah. So, man, it's been such an amazing journey because it certainly is not what I would have thought. I got my master's in psychology. I was in, 6 years in college. I never would have expected to start my own direct selling business, let alone have it be my full-time career. So my husband and I got started 11 years ago as distributors. We fell in love with the health and wellness products and the whole preventative side of health and wellness, knowing that when you put good food in your body does what it's supposed to do. And so we really didn't know what we were doing, but we were excited about it. And so we just started marketing, and we learned how to connect with people and bring them into the journey with us. And so over the past 11 years, we both have been able to retire from our jobs. We've traveled the world. We've trained our team. We've got over 50,000 distributors, and part of that, and the way that you can, I guess, I don't want to say manage, but really develop those people is to what we call layered leadership. So we're not just signing up distributors and saying good luck. We're really looking to mentor and help people evolve in their business. Meaning at first we teach them how to do a party and how to market the products, but then we also teach them how to sign up distributors and how to mentor distributors themselves. So the goal is that when people sign up, they're walking into a well-oiled machine of a personal development. And that's basically what I would believe any entrepreneurship venture is, right? It's a personal development program with a compensation plan. And so we work to develop our team. So that way I'm not mentoring 50,000 distributors myself, but I've got a handful of people that I take care of well. And then they have a handful of people that they take care of well, and it duplicates throughout the team.
That's great. And I think, like you said, it's such this, I like when you said layered leadership, and I'm sure across your journey, you've met people with, all different backgrounds and all different, even things I think that we struggle with sometimes of, like you said, not seeing our potential or not seeing, our self 3 steps forward. What has been the greatest impact, that you've seen or that you've made in seeing somebody that, they came in like, I kind of want to do this, but they really needed to be, picked up?
Everyone. Like, I feel like nobody really, most people, when they get started in something like this, put their toe in and they're like, interesting, but I'm not quite sure. And then they'll even say to me, good for you, but I don't know that I can do it. And so I feel like it's my job to help flip the switch within them about the products, about the industry, and then about themselves. And so part of the way that we do that is to give them places to grow. So we'll do team calls where they are kind of the ones sharing their success or their story. And then everyone goes, good job, good job, good job. And they might have been scared to share it, but they get the validation of everybody around them, and it works to boost their confidence. And then the next time they're not as scared. So we do a lot of things like that to give people a stage and to help them grow. But I can tell you there is one girl I'm thinking of specifically who just had very low confidence, just low confidence. And when I talked to her on the phone, it was, why is this not working? And, basically life stinks and everything stinks and nobody likes me. And I guess I'll go eat worms and, that kind of story. Yeah. And so it was a year later of listening to our calls, participating in our workshops, because we do a lot of Zoom webinar, personal development, leadership development workshop type things. And she participated in all of them. And about a year later, she asked for a phone call again. And I was a little hesitant knowing how negative she had been the first time. But when I got on the phone with her, which was maybe 6 months ago now, she was a completely different person. Not only had she put her story out. So one thing that she had done over that year was she went live on Facebook and shared why she had missing teeth, because she had been like in the midst of a bar fight one night or something and she couldn't get them fixed. And so for years she had cracked teeth and it made her very insecure. She put herself out there because of all of the personal development she had done, and it got shared and it got shared and it got shared, and a local dentist fixed her teeth for free.
Wow.
And so that, of course, gave her confidence. But there was just like experience after experience where she stepped out and was validated by the team. And I can tell you, like, her mindset is different. And because her mindset is different, her business is different. And she's a completely like 180. It's been really, really cool.
Yeah, that is cool. That's awesome. And I think just like what you said is, when we share our story, it's almost tenfold what comes back, that we sometimes, step into that vulnerability, and it's what's going to come back is going to be so, it's great. It's all super powerful and so impactful. Yeah. I think that's amazing. I know you shared, we touched a little bit about your workbook, which we will definitely jump into, but I think it's fascinating to look at this connection between neuroscience and then scripture and how all of this ties in together. So I guess my question for you is, what is the connection between neuroscience and scripture?
Oh my gosh, this is my soapbox right now.
Okay, I'm so excited to hear this.
Yeah, it's so much fun for me. So with the background in psychology, I was trained in cognitive behavioral therapy, which is thinking impacts behavior, and so I would teach that in anger management groups and teach that with my clients and things. And then when I got into It Works, we really, we focus on dream boards and what do you want, and really helping people focus on who they are and being positive and, all of the things, right? Well, throughout the years, I have really come to realize that it's not just positive psychology mumbo jumbo. Like, it's not just a nice thing to speak words of affirmation and have a vision board, that it actually physically changes the way our brain is wired and structured. So, for example, in our brain, we kind of have two ways of thinking. If you choose to believe, if you choose to fearful thoughts, your neurotransmitters and pathways look like a cactus. They're just kind of like dead looking. And you can do brain scans and see this. Dr. Leaf is a Christian neuroscientist, and this is where I've learned a lot of the information, but she has brain scans that show the way you think impacts the way that your brain is structured. So then the flip side of that is thinking positive, faith-focused thoughts. And the neurons that happen in your brain are like willow trees. They're brilliant. They're firing faster. It impacts how it speaks to the cells within your body. It impacts which hormones are released or not released. And then when you connect it to scripture, meaning Jesus taught this whole time, like, take your thoughts captive and the power of the tongue. And, the belief is the size of a mustard seed can move mountains. I mean, when you read scripture through this filter, it's really kind of blew my mind, and I'm on a mission now to share it with everyone.
Yeah, I love everything you just said. Like, I just want to bottle that up, because I think you brought up so many good points, and it's such a difference between, positive versus just negative thinking. It's, digging under those roots and really looking at, what are you feeding your body? And then how else, like you said, like the idea of a mustard seed and moving mountains. I mean, that ability, that capability is within each of us of, doing huge things, but it's stepping into that and, what are we feeding? I think that's so powerful. Absolutely so powerful.
And I think that most people live under their potential. And if we really knew what we were capable of, like, it's amazing. And yeah, it's like my holy discontent, meaning like it's like stirring within me.
I could feel it.
Everybody needs to know this. Like, oh my gosh, you so have more within you, and we settle so often, and so that's what the workbook is about. The workbook really does connect the science and the scripture. So there's some neuroscience in there with Dr. Leaf, but then there's also quantum physics, which is the fact that atoms are made of energy. So it's not a solid particle, it's energy. And that energy releases an energy field, kind of like a radio tower. So we're broadcasting this throughout wherever we are and whoever we meet. And so it connects the scripture with the neuroscience, but then also brings in some of the quantum physics stuff, meaning we become what we think about, because the way we think and what we believe impacts every cell in our body, and the energy that we're putting out, and like attracts like. And there's just been so many cool scientific studies that confirm what scripture says. And so the workbook combines them all.
That's amazing. So how, and we're going to jump into later too so people can contact you, but right now just talking about your workbook, how can people get a copy of it? How can they,
Well, it will be on Amazon as soon as it's released, and we're about ready to take it to the printer, which is so exciting. And so right now you can go to denisewalsh.com, and when you put your email in, I'll send everybody a 50% off code when it's actually on Amazon and ready to go, because I've been expectantly waiting for it to be done for quite a while now. So I'm really excited to get it in people's hands.
Cool. So yeah, we'll have all at the end of this, we'll talk about your contact information and have all of that linked as well. That's awesome. So you bring about, this dynamic of people of stepping into their potential that maybe they don't see. And earlier you were talking about, different clients that you've worked with or people that have come in kind of this hesitation or maybe a little bit of, maybe even just some kind of doubt or, even maybe some feelings of guilt or shame. I know you talked about the one woman who shared her story, and I think it's hard, especially putting yourself in a vulnerable position, because it can create, certain feelings. So, what are your thoughts on someone, if somebody, I guess, looking at someone, how can they, free themselves of these different feelings, whether it's guilt or regret or, shame, whatever may be coming up?
Yes. Yeah. I think, so there's two chapters in the book that really focus on the fear and the mud, and then guilt, shame, resentment, jealousy, the comparison game, all of the things that keep us stuck. Because I often say, if it were easy, we'd already be doing it. So we do have some healing to do most often, and we do have some baggage to let go of. And so the fear is, fear of success, fear of failure, fear of what will people think, fear of, am I good enough? Am I smart enough? Will people listen? Who am I? There's all the kind of fear that stops us before we even get started. But then there's even heavier emotional baggage, which is the guilt, the shame, and the resentment. And guilt is basically saying that, you did something that you aren't proud of or that doesn't align with your values. And with guilt, there's an element of forgiving yourself and coming to a place where you say, something like, I did the best that I could with the information that I had at that time. Now that I know better, I will do better. And working to heal that that thing that you feel guilty about. Maybe you need to make amends with someone else. But a lot of times we also have to forgive ourselves. And then with resentment is when you, like, somebody else did something that was against your values, against your thoughts, against what you believe is quote unquote right. Like they shouldn't have done it. And so with resentment, there's the element of forgiving someone else. And so that's when we come, and again, this is like not as easy as it sounds, but that's when we come to a place where we have to decide they did the best that they could with the information they had at that time. And hopefully they'll do better. But at the end of the day, that's not my job. So they did the best that they could with the information that they had at that time, and coming to a place where we can forgive them. And I think when we are free from guilt and resentment and free from some of those really heavy emotions that can keep us up at night, we are then free to look forward, because both of those emotions and the stories we're telling ourselves and those emotions keep us looking in the rearview mirror. And it's very hard to take steps forward when you are kind of constantly moving backwards. So the analogy I like to use with this one is it's kind of like you're going down a hill in your car with the emergency brake on. You can try to go faster and move more and hit your goals or be more focused or whatever the case may be, but you have your emergency brake on. Right. When you let go of guilt and resentment and free yourself from those heavy emotions, it's like just releasing the brake. You don't have to work harder in order to keep moving forward. You're going to go forward faster just because you release the brake and you let things go. And so working through that is honestly, I do a 4-week workshop live, like a live online workshop. And I'm always, nervous about this part of the workshop because it can be heavy. But I find that this is where the most of the transformation happens, and everybody loves it because we all need a piece of it, right?
Definitely. You just touched upon like 10 different things, but I think, I'm getting that visual of, going down the hill in the car and having the foot on the brake. And, what is it going to take to release that emergency brake and just let it go? And you also said earlier, too, about the idea around forgiving ourselves and forgiving others, and this idea around jealousy. And, I think, people probably come in and you've met lots of different people that have set ways. And, it's a matter of this mindset shift, or it's a matter of this shift in their perspective of, let me just show it to you this way. How do you go upon, somebody who has been set in their ways and letting them really open up, because there is so many, more things that they can see and so much more light that can be added on, just stepping into whatever it may be, and maybe even, taking the foot off the brake and stepping into forgiveness.
If I meet somebody that's resistant to change or even growth, because I do meet people that are like, I don't need that stuff, and the question I typically ask them is, well, is what you're doing working for you now? Because if it's working, great. But most of the time, it's not working. And there's a lot of things that we can do to help you be more confident, have more fun, feel more joyful, feel at peace, surround yourself with people who are challenging you and filling you up. And often, if they're resistant to change or resistant to learning, what they're doing isn't working. And so we kind of get them in a place where they can see that face to face. But I know that I'm not going to make anybody do anything. So they've got to decide themselves that it's worth it and to grow themselves. And when they do, they'll see crazy transformation.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think, you keep coming back to this idea of kind of this, I think of this team mentality where you're really on the same page as them, helping them, leading them, guiding them. I know you said you also work with your spouse, and the two of you, started this 11 years ago. How is that dynamic, working together?
Yeah, good question. So Brandon was an aerospace engineer, and he was bored out of his mind in cubicle world. He likes to say he went to lunch with grouchy old men, And so he's always been a visionary, and he's always been an IT tech person. So when we got started in the business, he really understood the importance of being an entrepreneur, the vision of owning your own time, and all of these things. And I had to learn in that. I grew up with, my dad was an accountant. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. You go to school, you get a job for 30 years, you retire. Like that was a mentality I grew up with. So we certainly had some growth, both of us, to do when we got started. But what I think made it so unique for both of us was that we had very different skill sets. So Brandon immediately went online, and he started online marketing. He's now a digital marketer and does Facebook ads and gets us ranked on Google and blogs and does all of these smart things. And I was a people person. And I love to connect with and help grow people. So he kind of brought in leads, and I would do parties, and I would do trainings, and I would talk to people one-on-one, and you know what I mean? So we worked the business side by side, but because we had very different roles, we could brainstorm together, and we could be excited together and focus on goals together, but we never really trampled on each other because we had very different spots in the business. And I know I wouldn't have been as successful without him, and he wouldn't have been as successful without me. So we really were a great team and are a great team.
Yeah, that is amazing. And I think, like you said, you're just kind of touching upon each other's strengths and then working together to, make this work, but make it work with what you already bring to the table and what he brings to the table.
And, I had to learn that he's not going to want to do team trainings with me because there's a time where I'm like, don't you want to be on stage, and don't you want to come, and everybody wants to hear from you. And so I had to learn that he was in his zone, and when he's in his zone, he can thrive. And then he had to learn that I don't get his language sometimes. And so we had to find, we had to just accept what our strengths were. And there certainly was some learning curves with that too.
For sure. And when you talk about in your zone, I actually just got this idea of, what, puts people in their zone. And sometimes it might be a morning routine or whatever it is, really kind of stepping into that alignment and what feels right and what kind of puts you in that flow. Can you share a little bit more around, being in that zone or what that looks like?
Yeah, so I really do have a strong morning routine. Now, I have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old. So there were a few years in there when I had 2 toddlers who went to, would wake up at 6 a.m. regardless of when they went to bed.
They had their schedules. Yes.
So there was it wasn't perfect all the time, but they're now at an age where I'm excited to, the last year I've been able to get back to it. So I get up at 5:30 and I work out. That's my workout time. And that's when I listen to personal development. So I'm listening to podcasts, I'm listening to books, I'm watching YouTube. I'm kind of listening to stuff. Mm-hmm. And then from 6:30 to 7:15 is when I read and journal and meditate and just slow myself down, just really kind of take a breath. Mm-hmm. And that's a really special time. And I find if I don't have my little journaling time, then I can tell the rest of the day. And then what I do is I have picked one thing that's going to help take me to the next level. So one, for the while I was working on the workbook, and then it was starting my podcast, and now it's starting some of the e-courses and live webinars that I'm going to do. And so one thing that is going to take me to the next level. And then in the morning, my morning routine is I pick 3 to 5 things that I can do specifically for that one goal today. And I do that because I found I was trying to fit it in my normal everyday, and it wasn't happening. Mm-hmm. I found that I would make it too big. I'd say work on workbook, and that was too big of a goal. And I really needed to hone it down so that I could cross it off and feel like I was making progress.
Those check marks.
And so I've learned throughout this past year is to have that time where I'm aligned and I'm centered and I'm connected. And then I have my specific target, and then I write down my action steps to get to that target and something that I can do today and cross off today. So it has to be small enough where I can finish. And honestly, when I do that routine consistently, not only do I feel good and feel in the zone, but I feel really productive, and that really helps me keep moving.
Yeah. I think that's so the consistency part of it, and just the fact of, the commitment side to it. And, you're talking about, mm-hmm. Everyone that you influence, and I think even your kids. Talk about such a positive role model, and, just setting that up for them. Have you seen, your morning routine or even just your day-to-day, flow into their life, factor into their life, or the change that it's made for them?
Yeah, for sure. There's been a couple times where we just giggled to ourselves, where there were times where I was taking notes at a training, and so Owen wanted to come. I was listening to stuff, and he came and took notes with me, so he couldn't write then. So I would trace I am smart and I am brave and I am, these positive mm-hmm. affirmations. I had him trace that because he wanted to be a part of what I was doing. There's another time when Brandon, while I'm kind of reading and journaling, Brandon is also reading, and we kind of have our own little chairs mm-hmm. where we drink our coffee, and Owen sits with Brandon and participates with him and just kind of snuggles with him and knows what we're doing. But then every year we create a dream board as a family. And so we sit down and we talk about our goals and things we want to do and people we want to help, or ways we can give back throughout the year. And we set that up as a goal map for the year. But then the other thing that we've decided to do was not just to do it once a year, but to have a gratitude jar throughout the year. So any exciting thing that happens, we put in our 2018 jar. So for example, Eli, who's 4, scored his first